Hello everyone, this is Fantasy-esque and welcome back to Season 2 of Royal Clan in ClanGen, the Warrior Cats clan generator game. When we left off in the previous episode, one of our clan members, Magpie, had an incident where she fell into the river. Thankfully, she survived, largely unscathed. I mean, she has water in her lungs. Hopefully that clears up pretty soon. I don't know how serious that situation. I mean, obviously having water in your lungs and near drowning is serious, but I don't know if it's going to result in death for our cats. Like, I've had this incident in the past, but my cat has recovered just fine, so fingers crossed that is going to be the case with the Magpie. But we ended off on a very exciting note because we actually managed to find a kitty pet, a she-cat, out on patrol, and we brought her into the clan, raised her to nobility without having her join Servant Clan, and now we have Garlic Glow with us, who is hanging out by the Elder's Den. Now, as soon as she came in, she was paired up with Icicle Speck. And not only that, she was elevated to the position of the king's right hand in the king's court, just to appease her, encourage her, and make it so that she feels extra at home in this grotto, and hopefully more amenable to having our very important litter of kittens. Now, her being paired up with her being made into the king's right hand meant some of the other cats had demotions. So Shining Stripe left the king's court, Icicle Speck was demoted to the royal physician, and then we had Inkfeather demoted to the matchmaker. Now also, her being paired up with Icicle Speck meant that we had some heartbreak also happen in the clan, because Icicle Speck was then forced to break up with Shining Stripe, who I think has fallen out of love with him, but I'm not entirely sure because they had two hearts next to them on like the mate screen, and then Shining Stripe lost both his hearts, but Icicle Speck still has one, so I'm honestly not entirely sure how things are gonna go with them. So yeah, definitely some changes. But this episode, guys, we have had our wonderful little kitten age up into an apprentice, which is very exciting. It is the second turn of Greenleaf, and we are on Moon 64. So I want to take a look at, obviously, our new apprentice. But there are some things we need to talk about in terms of Garlic Glow joining us and, you know, what her future might look like, some of the possibilities. So let us dive into the Leader's Den. We have allies with every other clan right now, which is really good. Our Age of Peace is doing fine. And let's have a look at the events. Flare has gotten heat exhaustion, which is not good. Frostfade trips over an unseen rabbit hole, spraining his paw, which means these two are going to be out of patrols. And Flare along with, I think was it Quill Runner? No, it was Bearpelt. Flare and Bearpelt were the ones who actually found Garlic Glow and brought her back to the camp. And then we have the ceremony that we're also going to need to talk about a little bit. So Icicle Speck has no doubt in his mind of who his new apprentice should be. Freeze Kit has always been looking for an excuse to be in his den, asking endless questions about what each herb is and what it's used for. As Icicle Speck announces that the newly named Freezepaw will be his apprentice, he sees Freezepaw's eyes shining in delight and excitement. Icicle Speck knows he was right in choosing him. So this is what ended up happening initially, but with the way I play with my fantasy rule set, the medicine cats and the mediators never take on apprentices. I exclusively like my apprentices being trained as warrior apprentices. And what I'm going to interpret this as is maybe Icicle Speck had it in his mind, or maybe the king had decided initially that he wanted Freeze Kit as Freezepaw to be mentored by, to be trained by his right hand at the time, Icicle Speck. Maybe that was the initial arrangement made after the king went out on his patrol, because that patrol happened before the one where we found Garlic Glow. But obviously when Garlic Glow came into the clan and Icicle Speck was demoted to the royal physician, things changed. So this would have been the original arrangement if Icicle Speck had been the king's right hand. But because his position in the clan has changed, he can no longer train Freezepaw. And so the king is going to have to find a new mentor for Freezepaw. So we're going to change mentor. We're going to remove, actually, before we do this, can we? Yeah, no, instead of removing mentor, can he have multiple mentors? I'm not entirely sure. We are going to switch him to a warrior apprentice. And now his mentor has apparently changed to Fernstar, which is very interesting. Look at all his potential mentors. But no, with Fernstar. So that's what we have over here. So the clan leader, or the king himself, has decided to train Freezepaw. So, my goodness, Freezepaw, this is what he looks like. He actually looks a little bit different to what I thought initially he did. Beforehand, as a kitten, he was entirely looking like, Mudcake. But because of his pose, because of his sprite, it was facing us. I guess we never really saw his back, but I feel like he has such a cool coat color. It's almost, I'm not sure if it's black, but it's almost as though it's black on the top, a very dark color that kind of fades into a muddy brown, which is, I think, really unique, really cool. But he is a strict apprentice. He was a know-it-all when he was young. He's now strict with an active imagination that he has retained. So that's kind of interesting. And then Fernstar, I'm pretty sure, is faithful. Yeah, so he's faithful, very clever, and a good climber. So I feel like this might be a good partnership between the two of them, because Fernstar, as a faithful cat, is someone who is probably going to believe that his apprentice can take care of himself, have a lot of self-discipline, and get through, the training that he needs to get through. And I think Freezepaw, being a strict cat, is probably going to be able to work around the king's schedule very well, because the king is someone who's obviously leading the whole clan and therefore, going to be really busy, especially when it comes to being in court. Now, because Freezepaw is the king's apprentice, he also has a very kind of unique insight into the king's court. So in my mind, unlike maybe some of the other apprentices, he actually is going to grow up in these particular moons, in his formative moons. He is going to grow up kind of seeing the inner workings of the king's court and how things function there. And he's probably going to have a closer relationship with all the cats in the king's court. So that's what we have for Freezepaw, but a lovely looking cat. Let's go and take a look at the medicine cat den. And actually, funnily enough, I think Icicle Speck is a better... You know what? It shouldn't surprise me, though. He is a better royal physician than Inkfeather, because if you think about it, he has more experience than Inkfeather being a royal physician, because, the cats work their way up, into the king's court and then up through the ranks, and Icicle Speck was a royal physician before he became the king's right hand. So even if he gets demoted, it makes sense why he's able to look after 21 members, whereas I think Inkfeather was only able to look after 19. So we have heat exhaustion with Flare Freckle, we have water in the lungs of Magpie. Frostfade has his sprain, nobody has any minor sicknesses or injuries. Magpie was given Mullen as treatment for water in her lungs. Icicle Speck gathered Raspberry, Juniper, Marigold, and Horsetail this moon. And Freezepaw gathered Ragwort, Oak Leaves, Thyme, and Moss this moon. So I think Freezepaw maybe still went to visit Icicle Speck to give his respect to Icicle Speck and help gather a few things. And maybe he and Icicle Speck had a little bit of a talk about, how initially the arrangement was for Icicle Speck to be his mentor. And he's sorry that that can't be the case now, but the king has decided to take Freezepaw as his apprentice personally. So that has been nicely sorted. Let's take a look at relationships and see what's going on there. An issue becomes benign when King Fernstar remembers Shining Stripe's advice. King Fernstar ignored Frostfade's advice on a patrol and nearly got hurt because of it. Scorchmoss and Shining Stripe laugh about something small together. Scorchmoss and Inkfeather make fun of one another, but it sounds more like insults than playful banter. Icicle Speck and Garlic Glow played around camp during patrol and got in a bit of trouble, but still returned to camp smiling. I was a little bit worried about Icicle Speck and Garlic Glow and what was going to happen between the two of them, because their personalities are not compatible. And also, we could not have like a matchmaking session in the last episode, but it seems as though they kind of get the picture. They're spending time together. And then Icicle Speck thinks Quill Runner is really funny, but then Icicle Speck is also spending time with Quill Runner. Flailstorm had a bad day and lashed out at Flare Freckle. Flailstorm spent a long time talking with Quill Runner and was impressed by Quill Runner's insight. Shining Stripe hears Ghost Feather laugh at a clanmate's joke even though it was lame. So this is what, uncle and nephew? No. I'm mistaking. It's because Ghost Feather looks like Bear Pelt. They're not related. They're not related, guys. Ghost Feather is the king's son. Foxclaw doesn't entertain a rumor that is being spread about Shining Stripe. Flare Freckle is sparring with Flailstorm. Freeze Kit, so this was before the Apprentice ceremony, bumped into Flare Freckle and didn't even apologize. Bear Pelt doesn't get why Scorch Moss gets more praise for doing the same thing everyone else does. Bear Pelt and Freeze Kit trip over the same twig in camp. Something embarrassing happens to Magpie on a patrol, but Foxclaw promises not to tell anyone. So these two, okay, they're getting along a little bit more, and we know they do have some history, some romantic history. Magpie and Freeze Kit don't start their days without one another. These two, mother and son, had a little bit of a spat in the last episode. But it seems as though things are, back to being good between them. Inkfeather asks Icicle Speck how he's doing. Inkfeather, Foxclaw, and Garlic Glow had a nice talk while eating. When a clanmate passes by holding stinking herbs, both Inkfeather and Ghostfeather gag. So we have mother and son over here. Quill Runner and Inkfeather realize they were the only ones that saw a shooting star. Inkfeather says something that goes against Frostfade's morals. Foxclaw can't stand being around Flailstorm. Foxclaw got a bunch of cats up for morning stretches. They didn't like it. Ghostfeather has faith in Bear Pelt. Interesting. I don't know if that's going to change things between Ghostfeather and Bear Pelt. We know Bear Pelt has one-sided feelings for Ghostfeather, though. Ghostfeather, heard Bear Pelt talking badly about him. Bear Pelt, that is not how we talk about our crushes. No. Freeze Paw, okay, at this point, Freeze Kit had his apprentice ceremony. Freeze Paw asks Bear Pelt to watch his fresh kill so he can go to the dirt place. Garlic Glow thinks that Shining Stripe looks nice today. When Garlic Glow and Foxclaw realize they've been grooming their pelts the same way, they laugh about it. Okay, so that is very interesting and very nice. Now that we have wrapped up things with events, let's go ahead and check out the cat list. Okay, let's continue with our cat list. So first up, we need to check out loyalties. I forgot to do this, but now that Garlic Glow has newly arrived into the grotto, as, an adult cat, obviously we have to check to see whether or not she's loyal to King Fernstar, because this is the political mindset she is going to keep for the entirety of Fernstar's reign. And guys, Garlic Glow is an anti-loyalist. So even though she was found by Flare Freckle and Bear Pelt, who are loyalists, even though they don't get along well with Kingstar, they're his enemies, Garlic Glow, she has kind of come in. I mean, she's a troublesome cat. And maybe instantly being elevated to nobility is getting to a head a little bit. And the privilege of being the king's right hand is getting to a head. And she's thinking, why does the king tolerate all these little independent cat groups within the forest when they can kind of take over the forest and, fight the independent cats and push them out, basically destroy their little groups and societies? Yeah, she doesn't understand why why Royal Clan doesn't just hoard the power for themselves. So I think that's her little disagreement with Fernstar's way of maybe ruling the clan. She doesn't agree with the way he rules the Royal Clan in the grotto. So that's what we have for Garlic Glow. That aside, I feel as though maybe before we take a look at some of the relationships that have changed, we should talk a little bit about Garlic Glow and her match with Icicle Speck. So Garlic Glow, we know that typically in this kind of situation with an outsider coming in, if, for example, Garlic Glow broke up with Icicle Speck without securing her position by having a litter, typically she would get exiled back to Servant Clan. She would have to leave the grotto and she would have her noble title revoked. And then another she-cat would be brought in to be paired up with Icicle Speck. Now, because we don't have another she-cat, we don't have another option, things are going to be a little bit different for Garlic Glow. She kind of has some security in that if she does break up with Icicle Speck, she will be paired up with another male in the clan instead of getting kicked out. However, this is only going to be the case if we do not find another female. If she is still at that point the only female we have available across Royal Clan and across Servant Clan, she will be paired up with another male. But even if she is paired up with another male, for example, if she's paired up with, let's say, Bearpelt, right? If she's paired up with Bearpelt next, then Garlic Glow and Bearpelt's union will not be secure, because if the clan comes across another female that can be a potential mate for Icicle, or a potential match for Icicle Speck, Garlic Glow and Bearpelt will be instantly broken up, and then Garlic Glow will be basically sent off to, she'll be exiled to Servant Clan. She'll have her title revoked, and that new female will be brought in for Icicle Speck. Why? Because Icicle Speck, he kind of takes precedence. I didn't realize this last time, but Icicle Speck is actually our 10th and final founding royal, which means he is the last of the founding cats who has not bred, and he is kind of the last cat that will be able to pass on his royal bloodline. We've already had, I think, 5 bloodlines die out. So making sure that Icicle Speck passes his bloodline on is actually very important for us. So I'm sorry if that was confusing. For those of you who like these kind of details, I just had to explain, but if it's like too much for you, don't even worry about it. Let's just enjoy the fact that Garlic Glow and Icicle Speck are currently paired up, and we can kind of figure things out as it happens. But the only kind of security really that Garlic Glow has is with Icicle Speck. So things need to work out between these two cats. Okay, that was a lot of chatting, but let's go and check out what's going on with relationships real quick. So the first thing that I noticed was with Garlic Glow, who has had a romance gain with Icicle Speck. So Garlic Glow, she must know about, her situation. She must know about the situation of the clan, and I think she actually feels quite honored maybe to be Icicle Speck's mate, because Icicle Speck used to be the king's right hand before she came along. He kind of held a high position, and I feel like for someone like Garlic Glow, that might appeal to her. Also, the fact that he's responsible means that he is going to be responsible towards her and ensure that maybe she feels more secure within the clan. Even though Garlic Glow knows that the clan cannot easily kick her out, they cannot easily send her to be a servant, they can't kind of revoke her nobility because she is very, very precious, being the only female they have access to that hasn't bred yet. So yeah, I think maybe all of that's combined to make it so that she's quite open towards Icicle Speck. They went out on patrol, they made some trouble, and even though he is responsible, it seems as though he didn't mind her breaking the rules a little bit, and I think she liked that. So that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing was with Icicle Speck. Actually, Icicle Speck had a few things I noticed. So first off, Icicle Speck, guys, has fallen out of love with Shining Stripe. He's been pursuing Shining Stripe this whole time, been in love with him, but now he's actually fallen out of love. And I'm wondering if, as a responsible cat, maybe Icicle Speck realized the severity of the situation he's in. He realized that the clan now is very serious about passing on his 10th royal bloodline, and that things, now that it's at this point, now that it's Icicle Speck's turn to have a litter, things might never actually work out with Shining Stripe. After this, it might never. Because Icicle Speck, he's going to be expected to get along well with Garlic Glow. But even if, he and Garlic Glow break up, the clan is going to find, or they're going to at least try to find another female for him. And there's no guarantee that Garlic Glow is not going to be paired up with like Shining Stripe, So I think that Icicle Speck is looking into the future. He's kind of seeing that he can't give Shining Stripe the sense of security that he would like to. So he's being responsible. And I think he is trying to let go of his feelings for Shining Stripe. So reality has kind of hit him hard. So that's what's happened between the two of them. The other thing I noticed was a little bit of romance gain that Icicle Speck had with Quill Runner. We know that he, I think, was joking around with Quill Runner, thinking that Quill Runner is really funny, spending time with him. And also, he has now become friends with Quill Runner, which he wasn't before. Maybe now that he is pulling away a bit from Shining Stripe, he's kind of not viewing Quill Runner as Shining Stripe's nephew and former apprentice anymore. Maybe he's seeing Quill Runner, in his own kind of way. So his relationship with Quill Runner is blossoming a little bit. And then finally I noticed a romance gain with Garlic Glow. So he, I think, also recognizes that the way forward for himself and the clan is with Garlic Glow, and he does want to make effort for Garlic Glow. He does want to, be responsible for this pairing, this match, and for her, and kind of show her life in the grotto. And you never know, things might work out, but I think he finds it difficult to be casual with Garlic Glow, given how important she is. So these two, like Icicle Speck and Garlic Glow, seem to be on the same page, which makes me very happy. And the final thing was obviously with Shining Stripe that I noticed. Shining Stripe had a romance lost with Icicle Speck. We know that he wasn't quite in love with Icicle Speck anymore, but it has like gone all the way down to just one bar. So Shining Stripe, I think that was like the last straw for him. He probably also, like Icicle Speck, realized that the right thing for Icicle Speck to do for the clan is to let go of this relationship. I don't think Shining Stripe actually blames Icicle Speck for any of that, because I think he gave up on the relationship a long time ago. But he feels like the right thing for Icicle Speck to do is to focus on Garlic Glow and focus on helping, the clan grow and thrive. So Shining Stripe, he has decided that he will no longer be clinging to his first love, Icicle Speck. So that's what we have between these cats over here, guys. That's what we have between them. But that is all we had for relationships. Let's go to the matchmaker, and hopefully this time be able to have a matchmaking session between Garlic Glow and Icicle Speck. So let's see how they do. Okay, so trust, platonic like, and comfort increased, dislike decreased. I mean, they did spend some time together earlier on, but I suppose maybe Garlic Glow and Icicle Speck feel a little bit maybe strange, maybe a little bit awkward to sit here and, be forced into, or I don't know if forced is the right word, but I feel like maybe it's a bit awkward for them to have Inkfeather watching them and trying to kind of mediate or, match the two of them up, trying to talk and encourage conversation between the two of them, because they've already spent time out on a patrol, and that was unsupervised, and they were playing around with each other, causing trouble. That worked really well. But now this is kind of like a formal sit down, and they're supposed to, who knows, have cat tea and talk to each other. And Garlic Glow is finding it a little bit odd in this very controlled environment to maybe speak to Icicle Speck the way that she wants to. So it's a little bit awkward, and they're not able to entirely, get the romance going. But that's fine, because they seem to be doing well kind of outside of this matchmaking arrangement. So things are looking good between the two of them. Things are definitely looking good. But okay, now that we have gotten that out of the way, let's see what all the cats are up to. King Fernstar has recently picked up the scent of mischievous kits in his den. I think that's just the scent of Freezepaw before he became an apprentice. Garlic Glow is finding the buzzing of the cicadas annoying. Icicle Speck can't sleep because of the bugs and the heat. Inkfeather is playing a prank on Shining Stripe. Shining Stripe is asking Flarefreckle, his sister, an important question. Flarefreckle is play fighting with friends. Bearpelt wants to compliment Quillrunner's fighting techniques. Okay, so uncle and nephew getting along well. Magpie saw a pair of two legs near camp today. Quillrunner feels a deep respect for the clan's elders. That suits him very much, as you know, a cat who is loyal to the king. Frostfade is sparring with some clanmates. Foxclaw is asking Flarefreckle an important question. So I guess Foxclaw and Shining Stripe are actually hanging out together. Very interesting. Ghostfeather chats with Icicle Speck about what it's like to be a royal physician. Freezepaw wants to show his mentor that he is smart, skilled, and talented. Yeah, I think we know why Fernstar probably doesn't feel too worried about Freezepaw, because Freezepaw seems to be a very motivated young cat. Scorchmoss tells a long story that no cat is interested in, and Flailstorm saw a two-leg kit playing with a kitty pet. So that's what all our cats are getting up to today. So let's wrap up over here and we'll continue with patrols. Let's resume with our patrols. We currently have 116.2 prey and we need 38.5, so we don't have to worry about food. We're going to send out our royal physician Icicle Speck to see what he gets up to. Icicle Speck heads out into the territory to stock up on cobwebs, something the clan never seems to have enough of. Proceed. Icicle Speck finds plenty of cobwebs, gently collecting them on the ends of sticks. No cat will have the chance to bleed out, not now, with so many cobwebs to staunch their wounds. Cobwebs were gathered, and then we're going to have a patrol of 6 and a patrol of 2, and this is the first time that Garlic Glow is going to be heading out with us, but also this is going to be our new apprentice's first patrol, so I'm excited to see what the king, his mentor, is going to decide for him, like how he's going to assign this patrol. Okay, so apparently the king has decided that because his young apprentice Freezepaw is so motivated that Freezepaw, instead of being supervised by the king himself, his first patrol is going to be responsible for observing Foxclaw, the king's son, and I think Foxclaw is the king's favorite son, if I'm not mistaken, and learning from him. So we'll see how that goes. But in this bigger patrol, we have Ghostfeather, Bearpelt, Shining Stripe, Quillrunner, Garlic Glow, and King Fernstar. So let's see what they get up to. King Fernstar has a vision for a clever battle move, but needs a couple cats to practice it with. Proceed. It's hard to describe, but eventually King Fernstar manages to communicate his idea, a type of kicking off maneuver where a warrior simultaneously gets distance from an opponent and can also wind them if they kick them right in the abdomen. Wind them? The patrol practices until they've got it, and everyone takes a turn getting winded by sheathed claws. Okay, that sounds like a very productive patrol or training session, especially because Garlic Glow is going to get maybe some much needed training, even though we live in a time of peace. And then finally we have Freezepaw and Foxclaw going out, so let's see what they get up to. Oh, I've never come across this, so I don't know how big of a deal it is. Is it as bad as like the badger? Like, it's coming across a badger? Foxclaw takes them both out to see a big porcupine a patrol spotted in one of the many glades of Royal Clan's forest. Proceed. Freezepaw maintains that porcupines are prey, not weird transformed dead cats or anything like that, just prey, and Foxclaw can't get him to take the training session seriously. Okay, I've never actually had these cats come across a, porcupine, so I don't know if you can get injured by them. I assume you would because of their quills, but I don't know. So it seems as though Freezepaw, despite being a strict cat, maybe wasn't able to keep his attention entirely on what Foxclaw was saying. Maybe he was strictly focused on trying to prove himself in hunting and overlooked the, theoretical exercise that he was going through. But okay, we thankfully had a very safe day. We had quite a few changes amongst the relationships, a bunch of stuff to talk about with the arrival, obviously, of Garlic Glow and our apprentice turning, into an apprentice, into, whatchamacallit, an adolescent. It is definitely taking me a bit of practice to like pull back from all the vampire technology, what am I saying? Terminology that I became so used to. But I think I'm getting the hang of it. I'm not having nearly as many slip-ups as I thought I would. But okay guys, with that said and done, I am going to leave off here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.